Hello dear Motorsport-Magazin friends and Formula One fans from Mexico City. The big dominating topic here on Media Day was of course still the disqualification of Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc a few days ago in Austin. And Lewis Hamilton, he dropped a bombshell during his media session. He says, according to his sources, many more cars have been illegal than just the two. Of course, you have to ask yourself, what sources does Lewis Hamilton have and why did these sources say that? And why doesn't the FIA say that, and why doesn't the final standings from Austin say that? We all know that only 4 cars were checked for floor plank wear. 2 of them were not in compliance with the rules. Now the question for the Formula One fan is, if you found 2 out of 4, why didn't you test them all? That was exactly the big topic here in the paddock today, and on the one hand there is understanding, on the other incomprehension. There is understanding because people say you can't check every car for all the rules. Then we wouldn't have the final result until Tuesday after a Grand Prix. That would not be reasonable. And the cars would then also go back to the teams very late. You couldn't prepare the cars for the freight at all. We're in the middle of a triple header. Then the cars wouldn't even be here in Mexico yet. Logistics in Formula One really is a very interesting topic. We recently made our own video on the subject. Very interesting, I recommend it to you. Link to it is in the video description. Now I said there is understanding, but of course there is also a lot of incomprehension. Lewis Hamilton, for example, said, well, then you should test all cars, and all these doubts would be cleared up. And of course you have to say that if you look at 50% of the samples and find out that they were not within the scope of the regulations, why didn't you check them all? Then comes the time argument. And there is a very interesting point. How long does such a measurement take anyway? I asked around in the paddock today, and it's actually a bit confusing. I told you in the last video that the measurement is taken at the floor plank. That's what the regulations say, but it's not quite correct because in addition to the regulations there is also a precise measurement protocol, and this measurement protocol states that it is actually not the plank but the skid blocks that are measured at these measuring points. As part of my research, I was allowed to visit the Haas garage with Günther Steiner and really take a look at everything on the car. Unbelievable insights. It was super exciting. Many thanks to Günther Steiner who simply took me along. Everything was disassembled. I wish I could show you all that now, but of course I wasn't allowed to take pictures. But I was able to take a close look at the floor planking and how the skid blocks are mounted. And with the Haas, it's really a matter of just unscrewing these skid blocks in a few seconds and then you can measure the skid blocks. But now the FIA and some people say, well, it's not that easy on all of them. In some cases, you have to unscrew the entire plank from the floor, and in some cases it's also glued because the contact pressure is so strong that the screw connection is not enough. That's why it's glued. That's why it sometimes takes 20 to 30 minutes. And that's why you can't measure them all. Now I have to say, yes, maybe that's the case with one or the other, but when I find out that 2 out of 4 are not compliant with the rules, then maybe I have to put aside all the other checks that I've already done 100 times during the season on all the cars and everything was always okay. Then I concentrate on this one point and really try to check them all. That's just my personal opinion. The FIA, on the other hand, says, well, we do random checks. Random checks what we test, but we don't randomly check who we test. They have data, of course. This oscillating metric has been available since last year, and this data is also available live for the FIA. You can clearly see which car is hitting the ground the most and so on. And of course that's why they already had a clue. Well, the Ferrari has a problem and so does Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes. So let's pick out the 2. But then you can also ask why the teammate wasn't taken out at the same time and so on. So it's a very complicated issue. In my opinion, they should have reacted a bit better and had more cars, even if not all of them, but at least a few more, so that the sample size is simply larger, so that we can clear up more doubts than are actually still there now. Perhaps in the future, we will also have to prescribe exactly how these things are attached so that they can be checked more quickly. Others say, well, if we simply did the whole weekend format with the Parc Fermé on the sprint weekend a little differently, that we dissolved the Parc Fermé after the sprint and allowed a new plate to be mounted, maybe change something in the setup, then we wouldn't have had the whole problem in the first place. There would be even more variables because the teams might prepare differently for the Grand Prix. We don't have any idea what's the sprint going to be like. Maybe that's something to think about. It would also be easier for the FIA because there would be less need to check whether the Parc Fermé is being adhered to. Lewis Hamilton said that the updates that were brought in worked. It wasn't because they were too aggressive. That 0.5 millimeters that they had perhaps worn off too much there. That didn't give a performance advantage. He's sure that the car is simply better now, and that's why it wasn't such a big performance issue for him. But a performance issue, of course, is still the Mercedes performance overall, and he says that now he finally has more grip at the rear, and that suits him so much better. And more grip, he actually couldn't resist a dig in the direction of Max Verstappen. He said it's so much easier to keep the rear tires alive, and Max Verstappen can do that at will now. He said it's much easier for Max Verstappen to manage the tires in race trim. Max Verstappen doesn't even sweat after the race, it's that much easier for him. But at the same time, he also said, to be fair, he knows this from the past. He once had a car that gave him this feeling with which he could simply go easy on the tires at will, and that's why he knows what he's talking about. So, a little side blow, but he then also admitted that he knows this himself from his own past. Now in Mexico City, Mercedes is also hoping for a lot. Again, it's of course a very, very special track at over 2,200 meters above sea level. We don't just notice that we're out of breath faster. When I talk a little bit here now, I already noticed something. The cars, for them, it is of course very special. Significantly less downforce. You have a Monaco aerodynamic setup here, but you have the downforce of Monza. Really crazy. When the temperatures get high, you also get real cooling problems, so that's going to be very exciting to see. And of course, it's the Checo Perez festival here, home Grand Prix for him. He says the dream would be to win here, of course, but you have to be realistic. He's been quite far away from that lately. Checo Perez versus Max Verstappen is a very interesting topic, though, because the Mexican media, the Mexican fans, they're pretty upset. Max Verstappen is not a teammate for them, he's a competitor, and he's actually viewed relatively critically, as is Dr. Helmut Marko after his recent comments. Max Verstappen is even on the road here with 2 bodyguards because of this. There is a big campaign here where they say respect, so a mixture of race and respect. It's a great campaign. I think everywhere in the city you can see it, not only with Checo Perez but also with the other drivers. Here in the paddock, people are already making sure that not quite as many people come in this weekend as they did last year. It was a bit chaotic. I hope that everything will go well. Mexico's specialty is also the food, the spiciness and the stomach, which sometimes doesn't quite cooperate. Carlos Sainz could already be affected. He wasn't on site today in any case. He wasn't feeling well, but he's supposed to be back here tomorrow and in the car. And the big topic that came up even before the media day here, we're a bit behind in terms of time in Mexico, was Audi. Der Spiegel reports that Audi is reconsidering its Formula One commitment. Actually, they want to enter the top class of motorsport in 2026. Der Spiegel refers to insider circles within the parent company Volkswagen. Yes, it's a tiresome topic. It has to be said that this is not the first time the rumors have surfaced. The whole project is to be re-evaluated from the point of view of its prospects of success. That's an interesting thing, of course. Alfa Sauber, which will be the Audi factory team in 2026, is mercilessly lagging behind, you have to be honest. So it's going to be very, very difficult to turn this heavy tanker around, as it is here in the Formula One team. On the engine side, of course, you have to build everything from scratch. That's one side of it. Can you really be competitive right from the start? Not for victories, but at least competitive. And the other side, of course, is finances. You all know what's going on in Germany at the moment. The economic situation is not exactly rosy, and the car manufacturers are especially hard hit. According to our information, the successor to Markus Dutchman, who was CEO but was called away this year, Gernot Döllner, is said to have presented the board of management with not particularly great figures. So things are not really looking rosy at Audi either, and Formula One costs a lot of money. And then you have to ask yourself, is it worth it in the current climate? Can you afford it? Of course, they've already done the math on how much it will cost, but they're now going to put it to the test again, do the math again, and then look not at what they've already spent, but at what it will cost them from now on. According to our information, there was a meeting last week between Sauber owner Finn Rausing and the Audi board members. What exactly was discussed there, we don't know. It could go in all directions. They could even want to accelerate the takeover of the team in order to put a bit more power into it now. But is a reversal perhaps also an issue? We don't know at the moment. I hope that's not the case. It would be a shame. It's actually a very, very exciting and great project, especially from a motorsport perspective in Germany. If you've been to the supermarket lately, you've probably already seen the Christmas decorations, or the Christmas sweets for that matter. Gifts, do you have anything yet? You can give away a Motorsport-Magazin subscription, for example. If you already have it, why not give it to your loved ones? If you go to the subscription page, link to it is in the video description. You have the option to either order it for yourself or just give it to someone as a gift. So what could be better than such a gift? For now, we're hopefully looking forward to a sporting gift, an exciting race weekend here in Mexico City.